Hi and welcome to Cheeky Richo's Apple Roses. I've showed you how to make tomato roses and now I'm going to show you how to make apple roses. They're perfect for Mother's Day or for that sweetheart in your life. They're very easy to do using only 4 ingredients, so let's get started. The first thing that we're going to do is core our apples. Get the reddest apple that you can possibly find. These are actually pink ladies, and when they're boiled, the pinkness from the skin will actually stain the apple flesh itself. We've thawed 2 sheets of puff pastry, just frozen puff pastry. It's actually vegan puff pastries. Okay, just cut our apples in half. Don't peel these apples, we want that skin to be intact. And now we're just going to slice these apples across the core so they're nice and even in quite thin slices. You're looking at less than 1/8 of an inch or about 2 millimeters. That's the thickness that you're after, as evenly as possible. And continue with the rest. Okay, our apples are all sliced and every one of them has been separated. We just dribble a little bit of water over the top of it, not too much, because we're essentially going to steam these. We need them to be pliable. They need to be able to roll, and they're going to snap if I try and bend them now. You can do this in the microwave for about 2 minutes if you like, but I'm just going to pop it on the stove. Low to medium heat, about 5 minutes or so, but test them as you go. Now just while our apples are cooking, we've got our brown sugar here. We're just going to add our ground cinnamon to that. Give it a good mix around so that it's all incorporated. Any little lumps of sugar, lose those, you don't want that there. And we're just going to sprinkle this onto both of these pastry sheets and press it in slightly. I use a piece of baking paper just to press it in, otherwise it will be all stuck all over your fingers and you don't need that. Have it as even as possible. You could add sugar to the apples as you're cooking them if you like, but there's no need to because they're a pink lady, which is quite a sweet crisp apple. And we are going to be reducing that water and the apple juice that it produces in the pan as a glaze. Now just get a piece of baking paper, lay it over the top, it won't stick to the baking paper, and just press it in quite firmly. And that's it. Put it to one side. Okay, after about 7 minutes our apples are nicely softened now. We're just going to gently remove them from that water and drain them in a colander or a sieve. Get as much of the moisture out of it as we can. Don't discard this water, that's why I'm not just tipping it into the sink, because we're going to be using that water reduced down for a glaze. Get all the little apples out. You can see they're really quite soft now, and the water's a delicate shade of pink. Now you need these apples to cool, but you can see they'll really bend quite easily, and that would never occur unless you cook them first. Okay, we've just preheated our oven to 200 degrees Celsius, and now we are going to cut our little apple rose pastries into long strips. Now I'm just going to use a little crinkly pastry kind of thing there. See that? It's got a little crinkly thing on it. 2 centimeters apart, which is about, I don't know, about 3/4 of an inch, and that should give you about 12 strips per sheet. Just mark that in our 2 centimeter increments and then just run along the line. Okay, if this was a longer ruler I'd be able to go right the way along, but it doesn't matter. One at a time will do. We've lined our patty pans with patty papers because otherwise they're going to stick, and you'll thank me later if you use patty papers. And continue with the rest. And now we just get our little apple slices and lay them along our pastry, overlapping as we go. You can mix them up with some thinner ones and some thicker ones, especially if you've got any that have actually broken, which does happen when you're cutting them so finely. That's what you should have. Now you will find that the apples are actually higher than what the pastry is. Now we just get our pastry, which has been perforated now, and just roll it all up. The plastic hasn't actually broken. Just roll these up quite firmly. Try and keep them into some semblance of order. And that is what you should have. Just give it a little pinch shut. Pop it into our little pastry case. And then when that goes into the patty pan, it'll sort of bloom in the oven. And continue with the rest. And just roll them up like before. You want them quite firmly together, but don't pinch all of the filling out of it, will you? Another one. There's our little apple roses ready to go into the oven. They're really quite snug in their little paper cases. I'm going to cook them until they're nice and golden and puffed and brown. Now just while that's cooking, you can see our apple juice and water there. We're just going to reduce that down so it's quite sticky. You can add a little sugar to it if you like, but I don't think that it needs it. It really is quite sweet because it's taken on some of the flavours from the apple. Boiling it down whilst you're stirring it will reduce the moisture content and thicken it up, making it quite a thick glaze. It'll be really glossy and delicious on our little apple tarts. Okay, after 25 minutes, they are hot from the oven. The pastry is nicely crisp. They've got a little bit of colour on the outside of the little apple petals. And this is our reduced apple juice. You see that? You see the consistency of that? It's like a syrup, but it doesn't actually have any sugar in it. And there's not too much there, but we don't need a lot. We're just going to allow that to completely cool, and then we're just going to brush the top of each one of those little apple roses with some of our glaze. Now we're just going to get some of our glaze and just give a little brush over the top of our little petals. And you'll see that it'll give it a nice glossy finish. You can dust it with some icing sugar if you like, but these are low in sugar. 30 grams of sugar is made 24 little tarts, 4 apples, couple of sheets of puff pastry and some cinnamon. It does not seriously get any easier than that. I hope you enjoyed this little cooking demonstration of Cheeky Richo's apple roses. If you'd like to see more interesting recipes and ideas, just check out our Cheeky Richo channel. And don't forget to please subscribe, and do come back and visit us again soon. We have so much more to show you, and we're uploading lots of videos every week. And thank you very much for watching. Have a lovely day. Why not check out our apple pie fries, another really super simple easy recipe involving apple. Let's have a little taste, shall we? It's really nice and brown on the bottom, and they're just like little posies. They're surprisingly sweet considering how little sugar's in them. They just taste like little mini apple pies, but they're way cuter. Thanks for watching.